So we decided to put together our list this year of the top 10 non-conference games in college football. Number 10, Wisconsin at Alabama. This game will be on September 13th. It's going to be at 11 o'clock local time, 12 noon there in the East Coast. It'll be on ABC, a rare home and home game. This game was awesome last year when Alabama went up to Madison, Wisconsin. They won that game, but man, it was just cool to see those two helmets on the field at the same time. Two proud programs, two traditionally very physical programs. Just a fun matchup there that we will have there in week 3 of the college football season this year. At number 9, we'll go to TCU at North Carolina. This will be Labor Day Monday. Now, this is interesting exclusively for one reason, and it's because Bill Belichick will be patrolling the sidelines for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Now, I think part of it, those of you that are watching that aren't diehard fans of college football, you're probably sitting there thinking, yeah, well, I want to see Bill Belichick. I want to see him on the sidelines. Like, this is crazy. Guy's got 6 Super Bowls, and now he's coaching college football for the first time in his career. That is intriguing for everybody else, but what's lost in the equation is that TCU, I think, has a chance to be a real player in the Big 12 and a dark horse playoff contender. So a nice matchup and a stern test for Bill Belichick in his first game as the head coach of North Carolina. At number 8, Clemson at South Carolina. This will be the final week of the regular season. And I look at both these teams. South Carolina, I'm not sure they're going to be as good as they were last year on defense, but I think offensively they have a chance to take a significant step forward. And for those of you that have listened to this show the last couple months, you probably know that I think Clemson has a legit chance to start the season in the top 5. And I would not be surprised at all if at season's end, they're number 1, number 2, number 3 in college football. I think they're that good. A legitimate national championship contender having to go on the road in the final game of the regular season against their SEC foe in state. That's always one of my favorite rivalries, and it will be an awesome one to consume again here in 25. At number 7, Alabama at Florida State. This will be week 1. Another great non-conference game. These teams have played in the non-conference before, but most of the time it's been in neutral sites. The last 2 matchups between Alabama and Florida State. 2017, that game was played in Atlanta. 2007, that game was played in Jacksonville. But prior to that, there were 3 games played in Tuscaloosa and or Birmingham. All 3 were Bama home games, 1965, 1967, and 1974. That was back in the Florida State era of anywhere, anytime, any place, didn't matter. This will be Bama's first trip to Tallahassee. And knowing what transpired 2 years ago when Alabama was in the playoff, Florida State was left out, I would imagine there'll be some bad blood on the side of the Seminoles when Alabama runs through the tunnel there at Doak Campbell in Tallahassee. So that game is number 7. At number 6, I love this rivalry. I always have. It's Florida at Miami. This game will be on September 20th. It's an in-state rivalry. Last year, it was week 1, and it was dominated by the Miami Hurricanes. At that point, Cam Ward came right out, asserted himself as one of the best players in the sport. At that time, there were a lot of questions about Florida and whether or not they'd be able to run the gauntlet. Well, fast forward to the end of the year, DJ Lagway emerged as a star for the Gators, and they finished about as strong as you could possibly finish. Well, Miami is restocked and reloaded. Carson Beck is now their starting quarterback. They have great personnel on both lines of scrimmage. Mario Cristobal has a legitimate ACC title contender again this year, at least one of the top 2 teams in the ACC. And I think if you're in the top 2 in the ACC, you're always in the mix for the college football playoff. They nearly made it a year ago. So Florida at Miami on September 20th is our 6th non-conference game that we're looking forward to this year. At number 5, Texas A&M Aggies will travel to South Bend, Indiana. This will be on September 13th. So a lot to look forward to in this one. We had this game week 1 last year. Notre Dame, what became an incredible year for the Fighting Irish. They go down to College Station. They exercise their demons. They get that big win on the road against an SEC team, and they were able to carry over that momentum, not into the following week where they came up short, but they learned from the mistakes of the first week or 2 and became an incredible team as the season went on, culminating in a national championship berth. Now they'll get a chance to play against what should be an improved Texas A&M team in so many phases. Coach Mike Elko enters into the second year. They get everybody back on the offensive line. The offense in general should be excellent. And their quarterback, Marcel Reed, should be a lot more advanced than he was last year. He didn't really even play against Notre Dame in week 1. So now that should be an incredible matchup when the Aggies head to South Bend there in the middle of September. We'll go next to game number 4, the 4th best non-conference game of the season this year. It's Notre Dame at Miami. This is kind of a classic rivalry. Now, people will point to it and say, well, it's not really that much of a rivalry. They don't play that often. There's a lot of tradition surrounding Notre Dame and Miami. We've already talked about why I think Miami's a real contender this year. And anyone that watched Notre Dame last year knows that it's going to be a great opportunity for them to repeat what they accomplished last season. Now, new quarterback under center. We'll see exactly who that is for the Irish. I think it's probably going to be CJ Carr, but we'll see. It'll be his first start on the road in what should be a very hostile environment week 1 with Miami's preseason expectations and with Notre Dame's preseason expectations. So big test early in week 1 for both programs with legitimate national championship aspirations this season. Game number 3, Michigan at Oklahoma. This game will be week 2. This will be September 6th. Second straight year which Michigan is taking on one of the SEC newcomers. Last year they played Texas and Ann Arbor. Now they'll go to Norman, Oklahoma. Well, they'll take on a Sooner team that will have a lot of new faces, but those new faces should be more productive than the guys they replaced from last year, most notably at the quarterback spot where John Mateer, transferring down from Washington State, now he gets his chance to kind of showcase the world what he's capable of, much like Cam Ward did last year when he took the field for the Miami Hurricanes. John Mateer and a bunch of new weapons offensively will be going against a great defense from the Michigan Wolverines. And then on the other side for Michigan, who's their quarterback going to be? Will it be the talented 5-star freshman Bryce Underwood? Will it be Mikey Keene, potentially the veteran that's transferring over? And I think offensively, it'd be hard for me to envision a scenario in which Michigan takes a step back offensively. They should be much better on that side of the ball. And if they are, that could be an incredible matchup there in the early season for both the Big Ten and for the SEC. Moving next to the second best non-conference game of the 2025 schedule, and it's LSU at Clemson. Talked a little earlier about why I think Clemson is a legitimate national championship contender. They have the quarterback back. They got tremendous skill. The offensive line should be excellent. Defensively, they have great players back at all 3 levels. But moving over to the LSU side, Garrett Nussmeier comes back. And there's people that have been surrounding the LSU program, those that have been talking about LSU being around the team and the players. They feel like this could be the year where Brian Kelly really breaks through. Nussmeier, like I referenced, he's now back in his second year as the starting quarterback. They've gone into the portal. They've adequately replaced several spots that needed to be replaced. They're going to be great at wide receiver. Should be pretty good along the offensive line and at running back. And then defensively, second year in Blake Baker's system, will they have a couple tricks up their sleeve against Cade Klubnik and what should be a high-powered offense for the Clemson Tigers? LSU travels from their Death Valley to Clemson's Death Valley. That should be one of the best games of the college football season. And then finally, the best game in the non-conference here in 2025, it should really come as no surprise. It is a rematch from the college football playoff semifinal from a year ago, where the Texas Longhorns will travel to Columbus, Ohio to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes. It's going to be an incredible game. 2 new quarterbacks that are very, very highly anticipated debuts. Julian Sand, more than likely for Ohio State, and we already know it's Arch Manning for the Texas Longhorns. Both teams have hopes of winning a national championship, and a big win in week 1 against one of the best teams in the sport should propel them and give them great momentum to take on the rest of their regular season opponents. So that is by far the best game in the non-conference here in the 2025 season.